Welcome, everybody, to the session, Unlocking the Power of the Salesforce CLI. I'm Willie Roomley. I've been with Salesforce for about 5 years now, and I work remotely in Boise, Idaho.
And I'm Eric Wilhoit. I am remote from Des Moines, Iowa. I've been at Salesforce for 7.5 years. The first 5 of those were in the Marketing Cloud, and the past 2.5 has been on the CLI team.
Sweet. So before we begin, the forward-looking statement we all know and love, don't make purchasing decisions on things that aren't generally available. But luckily, the CLI is all open source and all GA, so we're good there. So today, Eric and I will be saying goodbye to SFDX. We'll be talking about the open source community and how we work together as a team. We'll be demoing some new features, and we'll be talking about what's coming up and where we're going next.
Yeah, thanks, Willie. So first off, I'm going to talk about the transition from SFDX to SF. As many of you know, for the past 2 years, the CLI team has been working hard at revamping the SFDX CLI into what is now known as SF, specifically version 2. SFv2 went GA on July 12th of last year, and adoption of it has steadily increased ever since. It's gone really, really well. Moving forward, all new features, bug fixes, and security patches are only going to be going into SFv2. And after 7 exciting years with SFDX, we will no longer be doing any more updates to the SFDX version 7. So you can still install it, you can still use it. We encourage you to use the new SFv2, but we will not be doing any more updates to it. So a few stats about the CLI. All of these commands, if you're moving from SFDX to SF, they are backwards compatible, and migration is a breeze. You just uninstall one and install SFv2. We even have a script that is SF dev script convert that will help you migrate some of your scripts, maybe that are in like a CI system. We are currently averaging about 1 million command executions every single day, and SF is accounting for 60% of those command executions. With SF, we've made a number of improvements, but notably, like the bundle sizes are going to be much smaller. With the tarballs, if you're using those in a CI system, or if you're using the installers and running SF update, you'll notice that those are about 63% smaller, so significantly faster installs. And likewise, NPM installs are about 20% smaller, and we have more improvements coming on those soon. We've also done a number of performance improvements on SFv2. We've worked on hook initialization. We've migrated to ESM. We've replaced our logger, and a handful of other things. So if you are specifically running commands that don't have to connect to an API or an org, like any of the config or alias or version, you will notice that those are very snappy, up to 24% faster. And with the help of our nightly releases, we are at since July of last year, we're at 296 generally available releases of SF and counting. So if you want the latest and greatest of every plugin, you should check out our nightly build and get a fresh CLI every single morning. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Willie, and he's going to talk about our open source community.
Cool, thanks, Eric. So as that migration to SF, we took the time and open sourced everything as we went. And so there's a lot to stay on top of, 296 releases of SF so far. So there's a lot of release notes that are on GitHub. You can also run SF What's New to see them in your terminal. So that's just an easy way to stay up to date and see it right in an easy way. We've also been publishing a lot of blogs and working with our friends in the developer relationships team. So a few different blogs and blog posts detailing some not so well-known commands or functionality. Mm-hmm. We've also been really involved in the GitHub discussions. Recently, we've been working on the SF data tree commands, adding some improvements there where they were lacking. On Friday, actually, we'll be releasing sandbox refresh commands and a few commands to go along with that. And like Eric will be demoing later, we have some custom metadata decomposition, so that way you can break your source apart into the way you would like to work with it. Mm-hmm. Working with the GitHub issues, we started in August with around, I think, 300 open issues. And so we've been really working hard to get that down. So right now, if you go to our repository, we have about 50 open and 30 that we will be closing. We'll leave some open for historical purposes, or if you have this issue, you'll be able to find it and find the related work item or record with it. Things that we can't quite close yet. So We receive around 8 issues a week, and we're always in there. We've been able to release some issues the same night, so that the next morning, the person who raised the issue can thumbs up it and be like, yeah, you fixed our issue overnight. So we've been closing those at about 10 issues per week. Like I mentioned in the discussions, we have 9 that are in progress. That means we're delivering them right now, and we have 11 that are marked as will do. So those will be coming out soon. Since it is open source, we are taking contributions. So if you see any of these people in the crowd, or if anybody's here, raise your hand. Or if you know anybody, just give them a high five. Because Alan has helped us with the help output themes, so you're now able to color the terminal in a more friendly way. He and Kyle also added pipes for standard in to some specific flags, so that way you never have to have like an API key or an auth URL like in text. It can just be piped straight into the command in a CI system. And then Ronnie thought that we weren't quite providing enough information in the package version create command in the JSON output. So he went ahead and added what he wanted in that output, and we accepted his PR. So it's just been great to work with you guys every single day in the GitHub issues, or see your features and work with you to get them over the line and merged and released. So that's been great.
Yeah, absolutely. Being able to work with an open source community is one of the highlights of being on this team. And we do think that the CLI is better because of it. So thank you, everyone. So I'm going to talk about a few new features, things that have came out recently. With packages, we now have the ability to scope profiles. This is just a setting that you toggle inside of your SFDX project JSON to be able to, when you're creating your package, it will scope and only include the profiles that are in your directory. Like Willie had mentioned, we have a few new data tree commands. So they are being released as beta. They will be GA later this year, but they are available today. So you are able to import and export up to 5 levels of relationships. Currently, that was only 2, and now we are exporting and importing 5, which is what the API supports. You can also import more than 200 records, so we are doing some batching there just to make those imports easier. If you are a plugin developer, or you are linking plugins locally a lot on your local machine, SF plugin reset is a new command that just kind of gives you a clean slate to get back to just a bare install of the CLI, and it removes all of the plugins. It's nice for development. We have made some improvements to SF Search. If you've not used SF Search, you should check it out. It is a great command. It allows you just to do a fuzzy search across all of our commands. So if you can remember part of a command, but you can't remember all of it, this is a good place to start. And when you find it and hit enter, it will automatically print the help text for you. We have a new plugin called Plugin Marketplace. And when you run SF Plugins Discover, it will give you a list of community-supported plugins. Some notable ones would be like SFDMU and SFDX Get Delta, very popular in the community. But we wanted a way to be able to showcase, and people just getting started with that CLI, to be able to find community-supported plugins out there, because there are a lot of them, and it might save you some time. Instead of writing something yourself, you can find something that does what you want. And last but not least, here soon, we will be releasing a feature called Registry Customizations. And that comes with some quick start presets, and that is what I'm going to demo right now. Oops. Oh boy. One sec. OK. OK, let's start with some context. I have in VS Code here a SFDX, or a Salesforce project, and this is the Dreamforce sample app. So inside of the Force main default directory, we have a bunch of different metadata types. And I'm sure that most of you are familiar with custom objects in Salesforce. The Dreamhouse sample app comes out of the box with broker and property. And if we open up these subdirectories, we can see that we have compact layouts, fields, list views, and then a top-level metadata file that just contains some properties. I think this is all familiar. What you might not know is that this, in the Force app directory, is in what we call source format. And before we send this up to the API, we will actually do a conversion from source format to metadata format, which is what the API accepts. So we can do this manually by running SF project convert source, and I'm going to give it a directory to export to. So let's just call that metadata. All right, so that's converted. So if we go and look at that metadata directory that was just created, this looks very similar at the top level. We can open up our objects directory and see the broker and property. But here, you will notice that this is just a single file. So rather than being broken out into subdirectories, we have some familiar things, compact layouts, fields, list views. But it is all in a single file that is ready to be sent up to the API. So this two-way conversion is dictated by something called the metadata registry inside of a TypeScript library that we own called source deploy retrieve. And again, this is all open source, so if you want to go read the docs or look at the code or even use this in a project, you can if you have a need for it. So, all right. So that's what it looks like in metadata format. So now let's go and, now that we have some context, let's look at permission sets. So we're back in the Force app directory in permission sets. You can see that we have Dreamhouse here. And if we open this one up, we can see that there is not a bunch of subdirectories here. There's just a single top-level metadata file. So we have class access, field permissions. Down toward the bottom, we have object permissions, tab settings. All of it is set in a single file. So you can imagine that on some of these more commonly used metadata types, in large projects, this can get out of hand very quickly. It can make even finding and editing your changes difficult. It makes your source tracking confusing, or Git diffs hard to parse. There's just a lot of reasons why this is not ideal. So enter registry customizations. Inside of our SFDX project JSON file, we can add a new property. I'm just going to copy it from here. And I can say registry presets. And here we have decomposed permission sets. So maybe some of you are ahead of me where this is going. So now we are going to simulate a retrieve from our org. And instead of retrieving from the org, what we're going to do is convert from that metadata directory that we created just a little bit ago. So SF project convert, this time metadata API. And we'll specify the root dir of metadata. And when we run this, we're going to see a lot of things getting converted. If we go back to our project in VS Code and scroll up, we can now see here are our permission sets. But this time, we have a bunch of subdirectories. So we have the same things that were in that original file, class access, field permissions, object permissions, a top-level metadata file. These have now been decomposed into these custom directories based on that registry preset that we added to our package JSON, or our, sorry, SFDX project JSON. And this makes making changes that much easier. So we can go into field permissions. Let's say that we want this broker's mobile phone to not be editable in the UI, so we'll change that to false. Let's simulate a deploy. We can do SF project, source, specify the metadata, or the directory. And now, if we go back over to our metadata folder inside of permission sets, we can see that that field should have been updated here. So editable equals false. So that is ready to be shipped off to the metadata API. It makes making changes and working with your source tracking that much easier. So before we move on, I want to go back and look at our SFDX project JSON again. We are going to be shipping with 3 different presets. We'll have permission sets, sharing rules, and workflows. And this is a direct feedback from our GitHub community through that discussion. We have the ability to write custom registry rules, and the community was saying that they would prefer that, like, we created some presets so people don't have to go through the pain of making sure that their rules are written correctly, and that we have the benefit of people using these shared presets across projects, making it a little bit easier to get started. So if you were wanting to write your own rules, it would look something like this. Instead of registry presets, you would say registry customizations. And then you would have a block of rules here. This is actually for the permission set. This is what is being used behind the scene. And you are able to write custom registry rules of how you want a specific metadata type to be decomposed into source format. So we are actually open to open source contributions on these. So if you have a metadata type that you work with often and you feel like you know how you would like for it to be decomposed, join the GitHub discussion or open a pull request on source deploy retrieve, and we will take a look at it. So to recap really quick, These are all opt-in. If what we currently have is working for you and your team, you don't need to use them. We will be shipping with 3 presets, and we have more on the way: permission sets, sharing rules, and workflows. And then you are able to write your own custom registry rules, and we are accepting contributions from the community for these presets. And that is registry customizations. So with that, I'm going to hand it back to Willie.
Sweet. Thanks, Eric. I think the first person to contribute decomposed custom labels will be a hero in the community. But so where are we going next? So we'll be looking at JSForce Node version 3. So this will be a specific Node.js force. So if you're familiar with that library, you'll know how powerful it is. And so we've been working on a Node-only version, mainly for CLIs and other Node tools. So this will significantly reduce the bundle size of the library, and then in turn the rest of the CLI or any other project that depends on it. We've also noticed a trend in our GitHub issues around plugin installation, especially behind firewalls or like proxies in like a CI system. So we'll be moving from Yarn version 1, which is deprecated, to NPM for the package manager to support that, and hopefully fix a lot of those issues for you. Like I mentioned earlier, we've got the sandbox refresh commands that are in latest RC right now and will be released with the latest release on Friday. So there's the ability to refresh sandboxes and then check on the status of that through the CLI. And so that was, once again, direct feedback with the community through the GitHub discussions. Lots of back and forth about what flags we should have, what features we should support. So there was like, I think 40 comments back and forth. So that was great to see. Yep. So if we want to. So we just want to stay involved with our GitHub discussions, because you guys do really influence where we're going. And so now if you want to pull out your phones, we've got a resources slide, so to the CLI issues, to the discussions, the release notes, and some of the recent blogs. We can pause here.
Oh, sorry.
Because otherwise we'll just be saying thank you for coming. And then we have the survey feedback, so there's the chance to get coffee. And we thank you for the rest. We'll be at the booth for, I guess, all day tomorrow. And we just want to thank you for coming.
Yeah. Thank you all.